This episode of Grounded in Maine is sponsored by ESG Review. ESG Review magazine is published quarterly in February, May, August, and November, and is available for free in print and digital formats. ESG Review is devoted to environmental, social, and governance strategies, technologies, and investments. ESGreview.net is updated every Wednesday with 8 new stories and is home to feature articles, news items, and more. Visit esgreview.net to stay informed and help us spark the collaboration and awareness needed to develop sustainable economies and communities around the world.
There's a place where there's no trouble, no more pain, no more struggle.
Hi, this is Amy at Grounded in Maine podcast. I feel like a super lucky person right now. I got to speak with Emily from Springworks Farm in Lisbon, and she was so nice and she was so interesting and she's so passionate about what she does. And I'm thrilled to have been able to have this conversation with her, and I cannot wait for you guys to listen. I hope that you really enjoy it. We are talking about aquaponic gardening. And Emily is local, and Springworks Farm is just a couple of towns over from Brunswick, where I am. And I've never actually seen the farm because it's away from the road a little bit. But it's they've got a lot of cool stuff happening, which is very exciting. Anyway, I'm going to get to this interview. I hope you enjoy it. Thank you so much for being here. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for listening to Grounded in Maine today. My name is Amy. Today, I have a very special guest. Her name is Emily, and she is from Springworks Farm, which is close to me, and they have some big stuff happening. Emily is the Director of Business Development, and we have been yakking for a little bit, and I figured that you guys should maybe listen in on some of that. So, Emily, thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thank you for having me.
I'm super stoked about this now, especially after the last little bit. But so Springworks Farm is in Lisbon, and you grow. I don't know if there's more than just greens. So I know that it is an aquaponic growing system. Can you tell us about that?
Yes. So we do only grow greens in the system. And we have these sort of very large recirculating aquaculture tanks that are filled with tilapia. And those tilapia are the basis of our fertilizer. So when they eat food and they go to the bathroom, they produce a wonderful nutrient waste that is then recirculated underneath the troughs where the lettuce is growing. And then the plants clean the water for the fish, and then it's all pumped back.
It's freaking genius. Oh my gosh. It's amazing.
We love it.
And I'm probably going too far ahead already, but like, what's the difference between hydroponics and aquaponics? Or is it the same thing and people just call it a different thing?
Great question. So there's a couple different growing technologies available to growers. But what really makes aquaponics different is that we use an ecosystem approach. So our entire system is certified organic, and all of the organisms in the system are conspiring to create like a very healthy growing environment for the lettuce. And because of the fact that we have the fish, we're combining ag and aquaculture. And that's the distinguishing factor. So we don't actually have to put any type of fertilizer inputs into the system. And that's not true of many other growing technologies.
So hydroponics, you have to add to
Yes.
add to the
Yep. So
system.
it's purely water-based, and you're always going to need to add, synthetic fertilizers, which,
That's so
yeah.
interesting. Okay. Because my husband and I were talking about that, and like aqua and hydro, like they sound like the same thing. But
Yeah.
that that just shows where we are.
Well, no, it's not very common, so it's a really good question.
Hmm. Yeah, totally. And so where did Springworks come about? Like what was the how did that happen?
Yeah, so Springworks really came from our founder seeing the impacts of conventional agriculture firsthand. Because when he was a kid growing up in Montana, he used to go to a creek near his house and fish and look for frogs. And eventually he started noticing that the fish were disappearing and there were no, the wildlife just wasn't the same. And he figured out that it was because of runoff from a local canola field. And
Oh.
that kind of sparked that question of, is there a better way to produce food that doesn't really have the same ecological harm? And so he started experimenting with organic food, but in Montana, kind of similar to Maine, there's a very constrained growing season.
Hmm.
And then that led to aquaponics.
Wow. Wow. So it's like it's protected.
Hmm.
So the aquaponic it, the system is protected. You must be in a greenhouse. Like you've got big
Yes.
greenhouses.
Yeah. So we have, so in 2014 was when our first greenhouse went up in Lisbon, Maine. So um, really we're right between 295 and 95. And we're sort of in the middle of town, which you might not sort of imagine as like the best growing spot. But what's really wonderful about it is it started with a little 8,000 square foot greenhouse, and we realized, oh my goodness, there's so much potential to produce more organic local greens for our
Mm.
community and our region. And so then in 2018, we opened up an 18,000 square foot greenhouse, and that's really when we started seeing the potential for volume. And then just last summer, we opened up our third greenhouse, and that's our largest so far, which is 40,000 square feet.
Holy dang. That I can't even imagine how big that is. I'll have to see it.
Yeah, I know it's really wild sort of seeing it in person because you can walk in January and it's been dark for hours and freezing outside, and then you walk into a greenhouse and just see a sea of green.
I love that. It's the best. It's like the best color in the middle of winter.
Yes.
Like just to walk
Yeah.
in, it's so dark and you're like, "Oh my gosh, it's so fresh." It's so
Hmm.
fresh and it's so bright and green and pretty and so that and then okay, so 2020 you said last year you opened up the
Yep,
biggest greenhouse
2021. Yep.
and that was to do the whole Hannaford thing. Like that must have been when the
Yes.
Hannaford thing
Yeah.
came
So
about.
I mean, we have been so fortunate. We started working with Hannaford's years ago. But I think, that's a company that really wants to replace a lot of their conventional greens that are being shipped from, Arizona and California, both really water stressed regions to be growing leafy greens in, with local partners instead, if they could. And so the fact that we can, you know, produce enough to offset those channels year round, and increase people's access to local organic food, um, is an opportunity that we've been really fortunate to work on together. And that's sort of why, as we look to the future of the farm, we really see an opportunity there because many retailers feel the same way. Like the status quo is no longer working for consumers or retailers. Or I mean, I think a lot of people feel that the future of food is going to be a regional approach in a lot of ways.
Absolutely. I mean, COVID really showed that to everyone or a lot of people
Yeah.
anyway because with the shortages, but it just I I'm still totally floored when I heard I wish I could remember where it was, but I heard the stat that like 5% of the food that Mainers eat is actually from Maine right now,
Oh my goodness.
which is so gross. But and I heard something like 20%, but still, like with all the
Hmm.
farmland, with all the people, all the farmers here and all the growing, like why is that happening?
Yeah, especially, I mean, I feel like Maine is a state that really values agriculture and is known for really high quality food. I mean, the fact that when you think about Maine, people think lobster, blueberries, I mean, local potatoes. I mean, there's like so many wonderful food items that come from our state. You'd think we'd be able to produce more for folks here and, like surrounding states as well. And I think
Right.
like some of the greenhouse technology, like what we've developed, I mean, we really hope that we can demonstrate that at scale, that there's really no excuse anymore for all of the fuel that goes into shipping, like even just lettuce by itself in these refrigerated trucks, like 3,000 miles. I mean, by the time it actually gets into someone's refrigerator, it's been handled so much between warehouses and trucks and all of
Right.
the different like storage facilities. So it's, the food waste is astronomical. And so if you can like produce food closer to where it's actually going to be eaten, you cut down on a lot of waste and a lot of carbon that would have otherwise been generated.
For sure. Absolutely. Yeah, that it's mind blowing. And all the packaging too. Like there's
Yes.
so much plastic with all of that produce that's being shipped. I mean, my husband and I have spinach every morning with our breakfast. And, when we were buying the, big box of spinach from that comes from California is like I'm
Hmm.
picking through half of it to get the slimy
Yes.
stuff out. I'm like, it's
Yeah.
because it's been sitting on a truck after being,
Hmm.
after all that stuff, and then it sits in the fridge and whatever. It's just like it's not fresh. This is not the best thing for us. Um,
No, I mean, and it's also like I can totally relate to like trying to, back in the day with like I mean, it genuinely feels like compost at the bottom of some of those spinach containers where it's like already liquefied almost. Um, but that's when we think about packaging, that's something that like we talk so much about internally. And it's why we actually ended up switching from a traditional clamshell. It has like a hard plastic top and
mhm.
also a plastic tray on the bottom to like one that is entirely like post-consumer recycled plastic, right? So it's still a hard plastic bottom tray, but it's been recycled and it's totally recyclable. And then it's got a resealable plastic top. And and you know, I think when you talk about sustainability, like that has to encompass every part of your production and also like how it arrives to consumers. Because I think, I mean, we can't pretend like, you know, I mean, the full plastic clamshell I'm sure is recyclable, but if you can reduce plastic being introduced into the waste stream from, our facility, that's so meaningful. And so like we were able to cut it down by 40% on with that one switch, which we're pretty excited about.
Right. Yeah. And yeah. I mean, like we were talking about earlier, like it's better to not have any, but if you're doing something, 40%
Mhm.
is that's a big change from 100%.
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know?
exactly. And I mean, there's always ways to keep improving, right? Like,
Sure.
I mean, ideally, one thing that we would love to see more of is how to move away from packaging altogether on heads that you could, you know. But I think part of that is also as consumers, like what do we expect when we pick up a vegetable? And there's a lot of really cool things happening in that space of like, oh, we shouldn't get rid of produce if it, has like a little spot on it, or
Hmm.
if it like is has a funky shape or something
Right.
along those lines. So
Misfits Market,
hopefully,
man. They make money too.
yeah, exactly. They do. There's so much potential there.
Yeah. So tell us about the Hannaford deal. Because I don't know what it's exactly called, but I know that Springworks
Yeah,
is exclusive.
Well, so Springworks, I mean, we work really closely with Hannaford teams in terms of product development, and that's something that our VP, Sierra Kenkel, has been working on for years, really, with Hannaford. But trying to understand, okay, how do we produce a head of lettuce that people will like absolutely feel confident in replacing with a conventional green, right? Like for example, when we think about like a romaine head that's been shipped across the country, again, those plants are intentionally grown to be really, really sturdy.
Hmm.
They have very thick stalks and a very thick stem at the base that is not really usable. Like usually if you buy that, you cut off the bottom, and that's a very heavy, heavy base. But that's not usable product. So
Unless you're
is there a way?
replanting it.
Exactly, exactly.
I
But
think
it's like,
there's such a market for education in stuff like
yeah,
that. But again, like people just need to be open to hearing that.
right. But it's like, could we, in our system, could we produce maybe a smaller head of romaine that doesn't have like the same characteristics, which were initially chosen because they hold up with, lots of transport, with
Right.
something that is smaller, but all of it's usable. And like those are the conversations that we have, and we're really excited to keep developing with them. And we're also in Whole Foods and working with a lot of different like local producers. I loved listening to your episode with Reflanova because Sierra actually lives very, very close to the market
Oh
and
wow.
is there all the time. And it's like being part of a community of producers is also so important because you get to talk about, what types of products will people love, and also can be successful in a wider market. And
Absolutely.
finding that balance is has been really interesting. And that's something, I mean, with tilapia as well, we are working on commercializing that product so that people have a local tilapia option, which is pretty exciting for Maine.
That is because of what I've heard about, you don't hear great things about tilapia
No,
in
yeah,
general.
because right, right. It's not a very attractive fish when you initially think of it, because so much of our tilapia is imported. It's not easily traceable. It's grown in systems that might not be the most sustainable. Um, but if we can
Well, that was so
produce,
nice of you to say.
well,
That's not
if
what
we
I've
can,
heard.
yeah, 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 it's it's a little dubious, but if we can produce a local tilapia that is traceable, is and these very clean RAS systems, that could be a neat option for consumers.
For sure. I mean, because the tilapia must be breeding, so they're like multiplying as they're fertilizing.
Yes, so we ours are actually they don't breed in our system. So it's very interesting, but tilapia, because they're such protective mothers, we wouldn't want them to be breeding in our system because they would begin harming each other sort of
Ooh,
protectively.
defending, yeah.
Yeah,
Oh
defending their
wow.
young. So um, ours don't, but we do have them come in stages. So, we'll have one tank full of little fry that are tiny. They're so cute. And then, as they get older, we start moving them into, different tanks according to their age and size,
Hmm.
and all of that. But when you come see our facility, you'll get to see
I
them all in
will,
their big pools.
for sure. And so now I I talk to Gary all the time, and so I actually tried the tilapia. What did I try? It wasn't. I don't think it was the tacos. He offered a tilapia dish last year. Maybe it was fish chowder.
Oh yeah.
Um, and so that was really exciting. Like fish from Lisbon. What?
Yeah.
but But I volunteer at Growing to Give, which is in Brunswick, and we grow food for to donate, and they invest a lot in like fish emulsion, and so is that something that you guys produce?
Wow. So what does that product look like? Is
It's
that
it's gross. I mean, it
is it
looks like
literally just sort of a paste?
it's like a thick brown.
Wow. No, we when we've sold it, it's been like whole fish. So
Okay,
it's not processed at our site, um but
gotcha.
that's something that we're working on right now to get, like a but some of our tilapia are huge. They're not they're a few years old. I think some of the oldest we had were maybe like 6 or 7 years
Ooh.
old. So these look like prehistoric, massive fish, which is pretty neat.
Oh my
Um,
gosh.
but like when we imagine commercializing that, we really want to be able to offer like a fillet, like just a whole frozen fillet,
Right.
which would be great. But yeah, no, tilapia is not known necessarily as, the go-to menu item, but hopefully we can change that.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, and so I had talked to this guy, and the reason I was asking about fish emulsion is I talked to this guy who's also doing aquaponics in northern Maine, and
Hmm.
he sells the fish waste, the fish emulsion in like 100-gallon barrels. And he'll like, he'll sell it to some commercial farmers or whatever. And I was like, that
Hmm.
is so freaking genius to make some money off of that. But I mean, it's such a healthy fertilizer for because there are
Yeah,
some produce is like a heavy they require a lot.
yeah, that's interesting. No, we for our fertilizer that, I mean, we produce it just by virtue of having the tilapia. But ours is entirely based on their waste. And um, and like we have a neat biofilter where, we have mechanical filtration and then we have biological filtration and then we have a UV filter for the water. But we realized that we can begin taking some of the waste that we catch, through the mechanical filter and digesting that on our site and potentially offering that as sort of like another, byproduct of our system and trying to get that out to farmers, which would be really,
Absolutely.
really neat.
Yeah. That's very cool. I mean, it's using all of it, using all the
Yeah,
parts and it's serving the community and feeding the people and it's just like this beautiful circle of life.
right. And taking waste products and finding where they fit in for other farmers or even in our own system. There's so much potential there.
Yeah. Oh, so I think I distracted the conversation. I'm sorry. So we were talking about the Hannaford deal is what I'm calling it. But so Springworks Farm is you are the I'm sure you can say it better than I am, but like you are offered in every single Hannaford.
We are in about 200 stores.
That
Yeah,
is
so we're
crazy
in,
pants.
yeah, I mean, we started out, I think, in 5 stores initially, delivering directly in our little Springworks van. And now we've got trucks going out to service all of those, which has been so wonderful. Um, and I think having finding partnerships like that is really meaningful too, because when we started, like I said, I mean, we were in just a tiny single 8,000 square foot greenhouse when we began. Um, and having that potential recognized by in a partnership is really, really meaningful. Um,
Absolutely.
and especially getting to open up those retail channels for a local product feels pretty exciting for us.
For sure. My goodness. So 200, that's more than Hannaford. That's like
Well,
other
yeah,
stores.
So we are in Whole Foods. We're in Hannaford. And then we still have our little DSD van out on the road. So if you ever see us, give us a wave.
A
We've got a small
DSD
little,
van?
yeah, like a direct delivery. So we still deliver every week to customers out of our van, in addition to having the big trucks coming in.
Gotcha. So the local peeps get
Yeah, so
the
we make sure we're still delivering ourselves locally as well.
nice.
Um, but it's been great.
That's amazing. I know that you had said, I'm, um, I know that you had said one of the things that you wanted to talk about was why aquaponics,
Yes.
because you love to talk about that. So, Emily, why aquaponics?
Yeah, so aquaponics in our experience is an amazing way to actually use living systems to grow organic produce year round. And I know that you and I were talking before, but there's so many parallels between growing in soil to growing using aquaponics, because it is a living system, because we have like beneficial bacteria, we've got these little invertebrates. There's so many living systems that are creating a good growing environment for the lettuce, that we really think results in like, a very nutrient rich lettuce for the people who enjoy it.
Right.
And because it's efficient, like even though it's all water based, we use maybe 5% of the water required by conventional agriculture. So, I mean, you're saving 95% of the water when you use aquaponics.
Oh, shut up.
Yeah, it's wild. I mean, it's like the resource
So no
efficiency
soil,
is
less water,
less water.
cleaner.
Yeah, super, super clean. And then, you know, because it's we're growing in rafts, we can be really efficient about how we grow and, the timing. I think depending on the variety, we can grow from seed to harvest a head of lettuce in 35 to 40 days. So
Isn't it usually like closer to 50
yeah,
in soil?
yeah. I mean, well, it depends. I mean, it so depends on where you are and, soil quality and sunlight and all of that. Um, but in terms of like thinking about a resilient design for, trying to produce as much as we can using as little space and as little water and resources as possible, I think aquaponics is an amazing way to do that. And it you don't need arable land, so we can go into an industrial space that you wouldn't be able to grow in the soil, and because it's modular, we can put an aquaponic system on top of that and have it be a productive space.
Oh my gosh, that is amazing. Um, I'm gonna. Wow, I want to do that so bad. So, did you say that you grow it in rafts?
Yeah, so the lettuce sits right into the water, so they're just on these floating rafts on directly on top of the water in these big troughs. And so the water gets pumped out from the, area where the tanks are, right under, through the lettuce's roots. And that's how they get their nutrients, and it's all recirculated back.
Oh,
So
I
we're
can't
able
wait to
to,
see that.
yeah, no, we're able
Uh,
to grow about like 20 times more produce per acre than a conventional farm in California or Arizona. So it's really productive using just like a very small amount of space.
oh my gosh. Wow. Well, and so then I mean, we all know that I didn't know about Arizona, I think, but California we know has the limited water. But so
Mhm.
if people were to take on aquaponics, it's
Mhm.
probably too late in this meeting to start this conversation. But But so if they were to take on aquaponics, I mean, because it uses less water, like
Hmm.
I'm just like, maybe that's a really good idea for them.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely feel that, as like especially consumers start or are caring more and more about the impact that their food has when it's being produced. And so if you can grow using just 5% of the water, especially in water stressed regions. I mean, we're lucky that we're in Maine because, water's very abundant.
Right.
But what's not abundant here is our growing season in terms of how many months we have. And
Right.
so, that's why it's a good model for us. But, if you were to deploy it, yeah, in someplace like California or Arizona, it would save a lot of water.
That's amazing. I'm sure that people must have looked into that. Um, but okay, I want to see. I want to hear more about the setup. Like, what does it look? You
Yeah,
said tanks, but are we talking like? I mean, we're clearly not talking about 5 gallon buckets,
no.
or like those the trash cans halfway.
Yeah,
Like that what
no,
they make
definitely.
smokers out of and stuff.
Hmm.
What I'm just thinking like for like a for me, if I were to start up an aquaponics system, I mean, I think that people use like PVC pipe
Yeah,
a lot of
yeah.
the time. But
Hmm.
I'm just curious, like, what options are, because that is plastic, or is it
Yeah,
fiberglass? I don't even know, but it's not nice either way. Um, but I'm just trying to, like, to save water, to have it be healthier for the plants, to have a better growing season. But your greenhouses are heated, I'm sure,
hmm
right? Okay. Mine is not heated. But so just like trying to think, if somebody else wanted to do it that didn't have a huge greenhouse that's heated, what would that look like?
yeah. So if somebody wanted to start experimenting with aquaponics, I mean, there's so many ways to go about it, and there's incredible resources online. There are some really impressive home systems. But back in the day, we actually used to put little aquaponic systems in schools as a way to teach STEM skills and teach about the aquaponic method. And that was just using like a 5 or a 10 gallon tank, depending on the school system and how they wanted to do it. But you
Ooh.
genuinely can take your like if you've got a fish tank, if you just find like a way to put like a sort of growing container on top of that, and then you can create, maybe drill some holes in the bottom so that you can create a siphon so that water is recirculating through it. All you need
Oh,
are like clay beads, a container, and like a tank to create a really basic system.
cool. Oh my gosh. So do you have a suggestion for like a website or a place to go to do that research? Are you thinking like, I know everyone says YouTube or Google, and I
I
know
was
that
thinking YouTube.
because I struggle, like I know um I want to do mealworms in the worst way, but I've seen so many YouTube videos
Mm,
and they say different things. And so I'm like, what is the most efficient way to do that? Like, can I do it in the winter? Are they going to have to be in my
mm,
living room? Or because that
right.
is not an option. But then um, but but if YouTube, I mean, do you have a specific like YouTube channel? It's just so hard to know that,
No,
anyone can say
totally.
anything on YouTube.
No,
And
that's true. I'll have to look it up. I can't think of any off the top of my head.
okay.
But I remember when we were building our systems with schools, it was probably very similar where there's a million little videos. But what might help to search is like starting with the equipment that you already have. And so like see what's available for if you have a 10-gallon tank, Googling specifically, like have this, what can I do with this?
Right. Okay. All right. And then, so I know that, so another thing that you had said to me was that you started your own nonprofit.
Yeah, back in college, well, I started it sort of in conjunction with Springworks because they had the little aquaponic system. And so together we ended up placing about, I think, 200 systems in schools across the country, which it was really awesome. Like we worked with teachers to develop curriculum um, and got a lot of kiddos interested in like subjects that I think if you read about and didn't see them actually happening in the real world, like chemistry, for example, like that can feel really theoretical, but when you actually see it in action in a system, like you can apply it and then, get invested in it.
Totally. So, I mean, cuz yeah, I mean, if you're in a school classroom and you're learning about chemistry, you're like, "Oh my gosh, this is so dry. Like, when am I
Yeah.
ever going to use this in
Right.
real life?" I mean, I had that same conversation about algebra, like for real.
Hmm.
But that's a really interesting way to connect that. Um
Yeah.
and you're teaching kids to appreciate food. So, shut up.
Yeah. No, definitely. I mean, that has always been really, really neat. And that's something like during the obviously like the height of the pandemic, like we had to stop doing school tours at the farm. And that's something that we're so excited to begin again now that everything is more opened up. So hopefully we can, even though we are not placing tiny aquaponic systems anymore, we really want to, give students the opportunity to see aquaponics at scale. And, just like, again, when you walk into our greenhouse and you see all of that green, um, it's pretty impactful, I feel.
Right.
And,
Right.
kids can actually see that, like, this is one way that you can produce food.
I think I mean, that is like, I don't have children, but I just think that it's so important for kids to see how it's done and to
Hmm.
see different ways. I think that's genius. I mean, I feel like every school should have a garden
Yes.
and, to teach them aquaponics, like why the heck not?
Right.
Like
Because
it's
there's so
something to
many.
do, it's something to learn, it's something fresh to eat. Like I
Mhm.
just think that it's so underrated.
Definitely. And that hands-on nature of it is so engaging. Like, and I genuinely believe that there's something for everyone in aquaponics. Like, if you're interested in fish, I mean, we've got like what, like 50,000 fish that you can like see and interact with and like, get excited about their life cycle or if it's beneficial bacteria. I mean, there's a lot to look at there. And then, if you're a kid who's got zero interest in maybe like the more theoretical concepts, like if reading is challenging, but then to see like kids' confidence increase when they actually get their hands dirty, like that's amazing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Let's see. So, when I say the word sustainability, Emily, what does that mean to you? Or
Oh my goodness.
Springworks? Or to both?
I think sustainability for me, at least, is the idea that we can produce something that doesn't come at the expense of people or the environment. And so like and taking care of people is just as critical to the food system as like the actual seed to harvesting process, right? Like the fact that we can create jobs and make sure that we are paying people well, that we are supporting them materially, like that's really meaningful.
Right.
Um, and so I think sustainability means taking care of everyone that is part of the process.
That's really profound. I mean, it doesn't, it's just really profound to think about it that way. Um, excuse me, but like, you're growing food, you're keeping fish alive, you're lowering the impact on the earth, you're feeding people, but also as a business, you're taking care of your employees so that they want to stay and take care of people.
Yeah.
It's such a, like, it's really is just like a circle
Mhm.
it's coming full circle. You take care of people and they take care of you and they take care of other people, and the passion just continues.
Right, right. And I mean, that's at the end of the day, we need a resilient food system, and we can't have that if people are being harmed, if we're not, using resources efficiently. Um, and and even like the education piece, like getting kids to farms, creating opportunities for kids to interact with the food system. I mean, if we have an engaged and educated population, the types of misuse in ag, I mean, it's in every industry, right? But like we won't we won't stand for it anymore, right? So like
Right.
having each of those components in place is is really neat and necessary.
Cool. Oh my gosh. And then, so the last thing that I wanted to ask you, Emily, how can people find either Springworks Farm or you to
Yeah,
learn more, to follow, to partake in this beautiful circle of life?
absolutely. I mean, we have a website, so there's a way to get in touch for our website, which is I think just springworksfarm.com.
Is it
Um,
.com?
yeah, let me
I'll
gonna
look it up.
actually okay, that would be brilliant. I should know that off the cuff. But um, but also I'm on LinkedIn. I'm, always happy to respond to messages. If anyone wants to talk about like anything as it relates to getting schools in or talking about local food, my email is very easy. It's just Emily@springworksfarm.com. So I'm always available as well, um, to connect.
Cool. And I know that Springworks is also on Instagram because
We
I
are,
follow, and they
yeah,
post some
our
pretty beautiful pictures.
a lot of greens.
It's a lot of
Yeah, and we're
green.
just at Springworks Farm.
Okay.
So on Instagram.
Okay. Is there anything that I neglected to ask, Emily, that you would like to add?
No, I mean, I think that really covered it. It's just, I mean, I would love to say though that I mean, because food is such like a critical part of all of our lives, that the strength of our food system, I think, will hinge on a diversity of approaches. I don't think aquaponics is like the right fit for everything, and it's certainly not going to be like the only option for people, but I think all of us producing local food is really powerful and it should be diverse.
Absolutely. I'm totally trying aquaponics though, and this is just the start with us. I'm going to come see you. Um,
Yes.
but thank you so much for your time today. I'm blown away. I love the fact that Hannaford's been so proactive and just grabbing onto you guys and being like, let's, carry you in every one of our stores because we care about local produce and we want people to eat healthy food, and local food.
Definitely.
And I think that really the full circle with the fish and the plants and the saving of plastic, like it's such a good thing you guys are doing. And I'm so
No,
psyched that you're so close to me.
I know, I'm excited too, and we
And
feel
I feel so
really, really
silly that you're
lucky.
right around the corner and I have
No,
not seen it.
no, we're going to try to definitely bring back tours and open up. I think, COVID's obviously been a challenge for everyone and every producer. And so trying to find ways to get back in person is going to be really exciting.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you again so much for your time. I hope you have a great rest of the day. Are you guys busy in the winter? Like,
Yes. Yep. No, it's year round. So there's
woohoo.
no seasonality, but I'm excited to get you over.
Yes. Just a really quick note. I am going to take a couple of weeks off to finish this year up. I will be back with new episodes starting on Tuesday, January 3rd, and stay tuned for that. It's going to be very exciting. Happy end of the year. Happy 2023, you guys. Thank you so much for being a part of this with me. I want to take just a moment and thank some people that keep this podcast going. I need to thank Buzzsprout for hosting the podcast. Also, Jane Bolduck for her amazing music, for Becca Coffron and her fabulous artwork for the podcast. And I'd like to thank you for listening. I hope that you have a great rest of the day. I will talk to you next time.
There'll come a day, my mama told me, when I find love to have and hold me, a heart that's strong and so sincere. Just tell me, how do I get there from here? Oh, tell me, get there from here, 'cause here and now I'm so far down that mercy's bound to find me. We'll find a way to soothe the sickness, we'll heal the hate with sweet forgiveness. Wages of war will disappear. Just tell me, how do I get there from here? I wonder, how do I get there from here? Yeah, 'cause here and now I'm so far down, and mercy's bound to find me. When that state of grace has finally found me, well, there'll be music, ooh, and good friends around me, yeah. And I'll just smile through happy tears and wonder,